It's time for some aviation motivation. So let me tell you where this idea came from. And obviously, a lot of these ideas are born out of other interests. And one of the interests I'm sure you've seen on the show is the motivational angle of the podcast has always been there. It's always been sort of, I'd say, a core principle in the background as to what we've spoken about on the show. I am taking it one step further now, and I'm trying to combine two of my, I would say, core principles together. And obviously the one being the motivational angle, but the other being aviation and aviation principles. How can we use our aviation principles in everyday life? And this week, the topic of discussion is continuous learning. Airline pilots are required to attend simulator training at least twice a year. Just a normal line pilot will have to attend simulator training twice a year, often more. It's not something we do out of choice, it's mandatory. And here at the Sim Center, we see two types of candidates coming in for training. You get I would say the more common candidate where it's sort of the attitude is a little bit more of a tick box exercise. This is something that I have to do, so let me just go and get this done so I can leave and carry on with my everyday job. And then you get others that actually see it as a way to improve their craft and improve their skill. And obviously this is the type of pilot that we're very interested in, because it's quite evident in the simulator which side you fall on. Those pilots that see it as an opportunity to learn, an opportunity to get better, they certainly get more out of their simulator session. Now, every time you walk into a simulator, you're there to demonstrate your skills. And it's quite a daunting task for the non-aviators out there. You basically are putting your license, your degree on the line and going into the simulator and saying, okay, I need to now demonstrate my competency and I need to prove that I'm up to speed with the latest company standard operating procedures, any law changes that might have happened, or anything else that could possibly affect the safety of your operation. You have to go and prove that you are up to speed with these things. It's going to make us aware of any weaknesses that we might have prior to even going into the simulator. Pilots see these sessions as opportunities for growth, opportunities to make themselves even better, more competent, and able to deal with any eventuality in the flight deck, because that's the ultimate goal of training, the ability to go and prove to the examiner or the instructor that you can do it, but far more importantly, prove to yourself that in this scenario, I can handle it and I know what to do. I've got the skills, the handling skills to do it. I've got the procedures so well known in the back of my head that I can actually go through those as a type of checklist. And I've got the decision-making skills through either a risk management model or a decision-making matrix, whatever you want to call it, to be able to go through a whole set of questions and get this aircraft back onto the ground in a safe manner. So that proving to yourself is a vital, vital part of the whole simulator process. But let's now take this out the simulator. So for the non-aviators out there, how can we use this principle in our everyday life? This continuous learning principle that airline pilots go through on a yearly basis. What if we approached challenges, big or small, with that same mindset, seeing them as a simulator session for your own personal growth? By that meaning, right, if I really think about this session, if I really think about this thing that I have to do, how well prepared am I? Do I have the necessary skills? Do I have the knowledge behind me to go and actually achieve this task? And be honest with yourself. Am I 100% ready for this particular task? It could be a task in your current job. We all know what it's like. You get handed something that you have to do in your daily job, and it might be slightly out of our area of expertise. What could we do about it to up our knowledge on that particular task before we actually go and tackle it? Can we turn that anxiety into an empowering moment of possibility? Now, this is where a little bit of Stoic philosophy comes in here. Stoic philosophy, the idea that obstacles are opportunities. If you've ever had a look at Ryan Holiday's The Obstacle is the Way, fantastic book, highly recommend that you have a look at that book. If there is an obstacle there, instead of moving away from that obstacle, in other words, trying to avoid it, the Stoic philosophy is go towards it. See that obstacle as an opportunity. What opportunity? An opportunity for growth. That's what this is. That's what simulator training is, to try and get better. Well, if there's an obstacle in your way, instead of trying to avoid it, ignoring it, hoping someone else does it, see it as an opportunity. Go and tackle it. But don't just go into it blindly. We don't go into a simulator session blindly. We don't just arrive and say, okay, I'm just going to give this my best shot. I hope it goes well. We prepare. We make sure that we know the task. We know exactly what we're going to do. And then we prepare for it. And this is the same thing. So the big thing with simulator training is that it's a controlled environment. The simulator itself represents a real flight. The scenario that is either painted by your operator or the instructor is an actual scenario that probably happened. So it's a very controlled environment. Now, the same thing goes outside of aviation. What can we do to control the environment? Now, think about going into a big meeting. You might have to present something in that meeting. More often than not, we prepare on what we're going to say. But do we actually prepare the curveballs that get thrown our way? Now, think about it from an aviator's perspective. That's what we're preparing all the time. In the simulator, we know that we're going to be dealing with emergencies, fires, V1 engine failures, evacuations, all these curveballs. But those are the things that we actually prepared for. So in this case, going back to our meeting scenario, if we've got to go meet, present something to a board or do a presentation for your team, we prepare the presentation normally, but we don't necessarily in a business environment, at least what I've seen, prepare for the curveballs. What happens if someone asks me this? What happens if my HDMI cable doesn't work? What happens if there is distractions during the meeting? Am I able to pick up my place easy where I was? These are all curveballs that we can think about. Now, from an aviator's point of view, this is second nature. We're preparing for those things all the time, and not just preparing. We are actually planning for those things. We are anticipating that we will need to reject the takeoff. And if I do, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to apply maximum brakes, maximum reverse thrust, stop the aircraft, apply the park brake, assess the situation. We're planning on that. And if everything goes well, we won't need to reject the takeoff. We can take off as per normal. At V1, we're expecting your critical engine to fail. We're actually waiting for it to fail, and we're almost surprised when it doesn't. Okay, of course, this is taking it to the extreme, but this is the type of the thought process that an airline pilot would go through, particularly in a simulator scenario. And obviously, the good aviators take that into line flying. We're anticipating those things happening. And if you anticipate it, man, it is so much easier to deal with that emergency when it actually happens. So the art of preparation here is absolutely key. In that meeting, we are expecting a difficult question from the CEO or the project leader, but we've prepared the answer. If that answer is nice and crisp and clean and neat and covers the particular question that your boss was asking, the presentation's going to gain a bit of momentum. It's going to get better and better and better. So preparation falls heavily into this simulator training, continuous learning scenario that I'm talking about. Pilots do a lot of visualizing as well. I can't tell you how many times I've sat in a hotel chair if I've been doing my simulator training overseas, and I've sat there and I've visualize. I've made all the hand movements, the gestures with my hands and my feet. Take an engine failure scenario. You close your eyes, you go through it, you feel the yaw of the aircraft, you anticipate pushing a little bit of rudder pressure, getting the wings level, making sure the aircraft's in balance. And then you go through the calls that you're going to make in your head. And that visualizing is such an important thing. Going back to our presentation to our project team, the same thing would apply. Before you go into that meeting, visualize everything. Visualize the good things, but importantly, visualize those curveballs that could be thrown your way, and visualize the way that you want to handle those things. Visualization, a major part of simulator training. Another idea tied to simulator training and continuous learning is feedback loops. What we want to actually do is have our own feedback loops. How do we think that presentation went? How can we improve it next time? If you have a look at any one of these project management tools, all of them have a section there that deals with a sort of post-project brief. What areas were good? What areas weren't so good? And where can we improve? So a debriefing that we normally receive from the instructor can be used in a real life scenario. Break it down. Give yourself a debrief. Of course, you're not going to get one from an instructor after a presentation, but you can give yourself one. And if you have a colleague or someone that you trust, then ask them, how do you think that went? And then be very careful about not getting upset when they say, okay, well, you know, your public speaking is not good. There's lots of ums and ahs and things like that. You can get on the defensive because you think, geez, I thought I did really well, but this guy's giving me a whole lot of negative feedback. So we must see those things as positive things. And if there are areas that we can improve on, great. The obstacle is the way. Those are the things that I need to work on for the next one. And then, of course, go into the next one even more prepared because now you've got a bit of feedback. So these feedback loops that pilots get from a debriefing, a wonderful thing to use in your everyday life. Make your own debrief, write it down, be critical of your negative points, but also give yourself a tap on the back and say, I did well here, I was well prepared, and use those loops to get better next time. The more we do, the better we get at these things. And if we get good at doing presentations or public speaking or whatever it is that you want to use this principle for, over a bit of time, it becomes second nature. Just like these aviators coming for simulator training. They're not exactly arriving stressed and, worried about what's ahead because they've seen it all before. They know they can handle the situation. They know they can handle the engine fire after takeoff. They know how to make the correct decision. They know how to work with their team, their crew member, and how to bring all those elements into making the correct decision to get the aircraft on the ground safely. Well, the same goes with you over time. If you're dealing with something in your own life, business, relationships, whatever it is, the more we use these aviation principles, that, let's face it, aviation is the safest industry in the world. I think we almost downplay how amazing the aviation industry is in terms of what pilots actually achieve on an everyday basis. We don't even talk about it because it's just, okay, well, that's what they're supposed to do. But you might have even noticed how many famous people use aviation analogies when explaining their own line of work. They say, as pilots, they would have to do A, B, and C. These guys aren't even pilots, and they're using aviation for their own benefit, their own analogies in their own business. So let's boost aviation and say, well, it is a fantastic thing. The principles behind aviation are incredible. Let's adopt these things in our everyday life. And as pilots, we've got these things there already. It's easy. Just think about these principles, these things you do every day and say, okay, how can I actually manipulate this into my daily workflow? So that's it for continuous learning. Ultimately, continuous learning is a practice in resilience. It's the ability to keep adapting to situations, pushing boundaries, understanding our own limits, and then through a feedback loop, getting better the next time, making us more resilient. I hope you enjoyed this first little segment of aviation motivation and continuous learning.